29 is entitled The Crusade Continues. Zeisel, Leon, Miss Hagmaier said. Leon pouched his doll and walked to the front of the room. I can do this, he told himself. He approached his teacher. So, what does the newly minted master wish to do with his masterpiece? Miss Hagmaier asked. Is he keeping it for himself, or will he be embracing the spirit of caritas? I can do this, he repeated. Well, Miss Hagmaier pressed, are you depositing your masterpiece in the finished bin? No, said Leon firmly. The room fell silent. Leon could see the muscles in Miss Hagmaier's face, pinched under normal circumstances, draw in even tighter. But before she said a word, Leon held out his pouch and pushed from the bottom. The head of the masterpiece popped up like a jack-in-the-box. The full-size Miss Hagmaier first glowered at the mini Miss Hagmaier, and then she glowered at Leon. Mr. Zeisel, she said, a place for everything, and everything in its place, Leon said, I know, which is why I'd like you to have my masterpiece. Miss Hagmaier jerked backward, as if yanked by an invisible thread. What? She gasped. The proper response is excuse me, Leon said to himself, before repeating his offer. I want you to have my masterpiece. Whispers spread through the classroom as Miss Hagmaier plucked her likeness from Leon's pouch. No one could believe he was giving his animal to Miss Hagmaier, not after all the trouble she had caused him. But it was Miss Hagmaier herself who was the most flabbergasted. Are you positive? She stammered. Yup. Miss Hagmaier suddenly leaned over and gave Leon a hug. For a moment, he thought he had accidentally reactivated the doll, but he hadn't. He wasn't touching the masterpiece. This hugging was entirely voluntary. Ooze again filled the room. After Leon broke free, he noticed that Miss Hagmaier's eyes were sparkling the way they had the time she did Sizzlers in the playground. She daubed a tear from her cheek with her wimple and said, Thank you, Leon. I will cherish her. This is it. It's now or never, Leon told himself. Miss Hagmaier? He said. Yes, she sniffled. I was wondering, would it be okay if I made another animile? Another animile? Miss Hagmaier's mouth curved into a shape that resembled a smile. To carry on the crusade, Leon said. A few students started hissing. It wasn't like Leon to suck up. Quiet, Miss Hagmaier snapped. The thing is, said Leon, I'll need a few supplies. Of course, said Miss Hagmaier. Leon pointed at the counting house tally. That yarn would come in handy. The yarn? Said Miss Hagmaier. It's just the right color, said Leon. Miss Hagmaier handed him the snagglers. Help yourself. Leon walked over to the chart, snipped off the yarn, and tucked it into his pouch. And actually, he said when he returned the snagglers, there are a few other things I could use too. He glanced at the supply cabinet. Miss Hagmaier pressed the brass key into his hand. You take whatever you need. Leon undid the padlock, opened the cabinet doors, and filled his pouch with cloth, pantyhose, and glass eyeballs. What are you making? Thomas asked, gawking from his desk. An animile, Leon said vaguely. Well, duh. I mean, what kind? A gargoyle? Nastier, said Leon. Nastier than a gargoyle? Said Thomas approvingly. A dragon? Leon shook his head. Nastier, he said. He closed the doors, replaced the lock, and returned the key. I hope that Leon isn't the only one making animals over the summer, Miss Hagmaier told the class. Diligence shouldn't stop with the end of the school year. After all, spool work can be cool work. Snickers greeted Miss Hagmaier's feeble attempt at humor. Mr. Hankey stuck his head into the classroom and clanged his bell. It's nones, Phyllis. Miss Hagmaier looked at the wall clock. It most certainly is not nones, Mr. Hankey. Well, I was told to get the fourth graders out to the playground. Principal Birdwhistle wants to see them. Is something wrong? Said Miss Hagmaier over the groans of her students. Not a thing, said the janitor with a laugh. Principal Birdwhistle had me set up a dunking pool. She should be sitting down in it right about now. And the mood in the classroom suddenly turned boisterous. All eyes locked onto Miss Hagmaier. Fine, she told the class. Consider yourselves banished. As the students broke for the door, Miss Hagmaier thwacked her instructional needle against the table. Stop! Everyone froze. One last thing, Miss Hagmaier said. When you have Principal Birdwhistle in your sights and a beanbag in your hand, make sure you prove to her that your year with the hag has made your fingers nimble. And with that, she released her students. They galloped toward the playground like tournament steeds. On the way, Lily Matisse and P.W. cut Leon off and demanded an explanation for his curious classroom behavior. Have you gone completely insane? Said P.W. How could you give her the doll? It's no biggie, said Leon. No biggie, said Lily Matisse. That's like Merlin saying, Here, take my wand. I had some tumbling moves I wanted you to test out. Now we'll never get to see the hag do a full twisting double layout dismount. P.W. scoffed. Who cares about gymnastics? No more doll means no more hagapole. I could have replaced the winch and rubber band. It could have been all systems go. We could have owned Lumpkin. No, said Leon. We couldn't have. Not with the Hagmaier doll. I finally figured out what the problem was. Masterpieces can't attack. What are you talking about? Said P.W. What about the food fight? The food fight was an accident, not an attack. I was aiming at Lumpkin, but signal disturbance sent the cottage cheese off course twice. And you just saw what happened with the pantyhose. Still, said Lily Matisse, you could have put the masterpiece in the finish bin like everyone else. Giving it to the hag was so Antoinette-y. Hey, I needed stuff from the cabinet, said Leon. Sucking up seemed like the fastest way to get it. You should have doll-worked the hag over to the cabinet, said P.W. I thought about that, said Leon. There wasn't time. And getting her to unlock the door would have been tricky. Besides, everyone would have seen me. They entered the playground. Lily Matisse shook her head. I still can't believe you're thinking about sewing projects. Yeah, said P.W. We've got some more important things to deal with. Such as? Said Leon. Such as a certain toothless curd turd. I'm not worried about Lumpkin, said Leon. You're not worried about the sidewinders? Said Lily Matisse. Nope. Or the dead arms and noogies? Said P.W. Nope. Then you're nuts, said Lily Matisse. After all that's happened today, Lumpkin's going to pulverize us, cried P.W. It's just a matter of time. I don't think so, Leon said confidently. Lily Matisse gave him a sideways glance. All right, what gives? Yeah, Leon, what's this project of yours? P.W. demanded. Before I tell, I want the needle pledge. Isn't it kind of unnecessary? Said Lily Matisse. You don't have the doll anymore. The pledge, Leon insisted. Fine, said Lily Matisse. Cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. There, satisfied? Aren't you forgetting something? Sheesh, Lily Matisse sealed the oath with a feeble pretend patooey. P.W.? P.W. said the pledge and spat without complaint. Okay, so let's hear it. Leon pulled a strand of orange yarn from his pouch. Remind you of anything? He said, wiggling it. P.W. and Lily Matisse exchanged confused looks. I'll give you a hint, said Leon. He pointed at Lumpkin, who was jostling his way to the front of the dunking pool line. Lily Matisse stared at the yarn, then at Lumpkin, then at the yarn. She abruptly cupped her mouth with her hand. Oh my gosh. What's gotten into you? P.W. asked. Lumpkin's hair, Lily Matisse blurted out. What about it? Said P.W. It's the same exact orange color as the yarn. Is it? Said Leon. A giant smirk stretched across his face. P.W. looked at the yarn more closely. Unbelievable, he suddenly shouted. What? Said Leon with fake innocence. P.W. gave an excited poke at the pouch. What else do you have in that goodie bag? Leon removed a scrap of green cloth. That's a perfect match for Lumpkin's army jacket, P.W. cried. Really? Said Leon, grinning more than ever. All at once, Lily Matisse, P.W., and Leon began laughing uncontrollably. When they finally stopped, P.W. said, We'll be totally noogie-proof and sidewinder-proof, said Lily Matisse. Basically, we'll be Lumpkin-proof, said Leon. Freaky, P.W. exclaimed. Our very own Henry Lumpkin doll. Think of the possibilities. Knowing Leon, said Lily Matisse, I bet he has. When Mr. Hankey clanged the final bell, Lily Matisse, P.W., and Leon piled into Napoleon's taxi and headed for the Trimore Towers. And how was your day, Monsieur Leon? Napoleon asked, on a scale of 1 to 10. 11, all three classmates shouted. Jinx, jinx, jinx. 11, said Napoleon. Is such a thing possible? Absolutely, Lily Matisse said. Just ask the hag. Leon got the highest grade in the class. 11 stitches per inch. The news pleased Napoleon immensely. C'est magnifique. Magnifique. How do you say that in French? Magnifique? C'est magnifique. We must alert Madame Zeisel. He grabbed his car phone and placed a call. By the time the taxi reached the hotel, Leon's mom and Maria were waiting out front. Terrific news, sweetie. I knew you'd pass. But top marks? Emma Zeisel planted a big kiss on her son's cheek. He blushed. Way to go, Leonito, said Maria. You showed that, Miss Pantyhose. Thanks, said Leon. A van pulled up to the hotel. Penguins, shouted Lily Matisse, pointing to the exiting passengers. Must be the Antarctica Society, said Emma Zeisel matter-of-factly. I better get back to reception. Oh, Frau Haffenreffer is setting up some pastries and chips for the three of you in the coffee shop. Want me to go change the signboard? Leon asked. Not necessary, sweetie. Already taken care of. And indeed it was. When Leon and his friends pushed through the revolving door, they were greeted by the following notice. Congratulations, Master Leon. 11 SPI. Went a little crazy with the exclamation marks, didn't you, Mom? Not at all, said Emma Zeisel. That's all there were in the letterbox. Otherwise, I'd have used tons more. A penguin waddled toward the revolving door. Uh-oh, said Maria. I better get the poopy gone. I have it covered, said Emma Zeisel. She held up a diaper. Maria laughed. So, what are you kids going to do now that you've finished all those silly sewing projects? Asked Leon's mother. Oh, they're not all done, Miss Z, said Lily Matisse. Really? Really, said P.W. We've got a huge project we're just about to start. Isn't that right, Leon? Leon tapped his pouch and looked at his friends. Yup, he said with a smile. The end.